people have submitted the links. The people who have submitted the GitHub links is fine. The other people, you have submitted links, but the link is not getting opened. So could you cross check it? So what links have you pasted? Please cross check once. If you have pasted the URL of your local host, then it will not reflect to us, like we cannot review your project. So please make sure to attach the screenshots, nor just put it into your GitHub and just paste the URL, nor you can just paste the text and you can make it a PDF report, something kind of stuff, and you can put it. So hope my screen is visible. Like 1 second. So is my screen visible, everyone? Is the screen visible? Yes, no? Okay. So today we'll be seeing ORM and Hibernate architecture. So what is this ORM? ORM is like Object Relational Mapping. So first step, Object Relational Mapping. Okay, so what exactly we are gonna do is like we have two objects, like two things we'll be mainly following here. One is Java objects. Okay, so Java objects is nothing but the database tables. I'll explain what is this database tables and where exactly we'll be using. And we have something called object fields. Okay, so this object is like table, column. Okay, so we'll be mainly focusing on these two. So these many days what we were doing is like we were writing a SQL code, right? So this ORM, what it does is it allows your work with database data using this objects instead of using your SQL queries. So till now we were using a database as an SQL queries, right? So now what you will be doing using Hibernate is you will be not writing any code, something like insert into student. So something like ID comma name values. So you are giving values 1 comma. So something like Yash. So you are giving something like this, right? You are writing your SQL queries before. So we now what we'll be doing in the Hibernetics using ORM is like you will be not writing any sort of SQL queries. Sorry. So you will be what you will be doing is you will be writing code instead. So you will be writing a Java code, something like student s is equals to new student. So here only you will be giving your values. So here only you will be giving your values. So once you have given your values, what you will be doing is like we have something called session save. I'll explain this while doing the code, like while explaining the code. So we'll be using this. So once you write this Java code, so you'll be writing student as is equal to new student and you'll be storing this value. So this value will be converted into tables, okay, into SQL queries. So it will be converting into your SQL queries, and that query will be executing in the output. So you will be not writing any sort of SQL queries. Instead of that, using Hibernates, you will be writing a code directly using Java, and Java code is been converted into SQL automatically, and it will fetch the data and it will close the session and it will come out and print the output. So to overcome this SQL queries, we'll be using ORM. Okay, so ORM is like it allows you to work with database data using objects instead of SQL queries. So is this clear? So is ORM clear? So it is something like your online delivery. Like instead of you going to the shop manually and picking things and then going to the bill counter and you're paying a bill, instead of doing that, you can just download the app, like that particular shop's app, and you can just click whatever things you need and you can place an order through online. So it is a simple way, right? So in the same way, using Java, you'll be writing all the inputs and the which you need, and it will be converted into SQL query and it will be read in the backend and it will be fetching the output so that one the ID and the name will be printed. So is that clear? Do you have any doubts here? Do you have any doubts in ORM? Okay. So next we have Hibernate. So what is this Hibernate is? It is a it is a Hibernate is a framework. Okay. So it has a ORM framework. So what it does is it converts the Java object into data types, as I've already mentioned. So three things will be like following here. It converts Java object. So it converts your Java object into database tables. And second thing, it removes the need for most SQL. So it will remove your need of SQL. So no need of SQL here. So you can handle CRUD operations automatically. So instead of writing individually, like going and writing post, delete, update, so instead of using these, so you can do it automatically. So these are the three keywords we'll be using in Hibernate. So mainly Hibernate is used to convert Java objects, then it removes the need of SQL, so we'll be not using any SQL, and it handles CRUD operation automatically. So these many days what we were doing is like we were looking from start. So we were looking step by step. So this is a upgraded version. It is something like your iPhones, like it keeps on updating, right? In the same way, the more updation, the reduction of the risk. Okay. So in the same way, even in Java. So nowadays, most of the Java programming they'll be using Hibernates. Hibernates will be using the Hibernates in the most of the place for the SQL. So it is very easy. So you'll be writing directly in the Java code. Fine. So next we have a Hibernate architecture. So this Hibernate architecture is important as this is an interview question. So they'll be asking it in your interviews to explain the architecture. So mainly they'll ask only few things when you go to college like interviews. So one is MVC. So one is MVC. So MVC, as that is very confusion, like a confusion part in a whole Java. So they'll be asking MVC, and once a MVC is done, they'll be most probably asking Spring Boots. Spring Boots is easy. So they'll mainly concentrate on that. They'll just ask the small questions like how to connect the front end and how to connect the SQL, how do you merge Spring Boots and the JDBC. These kind of questions they'll be asking. Then comes the Hibernate. In Hibernate, they'll ask Hibernate what the framework which have been used in Hibernate, that is ORM framework will be using in Hibernate, and why mainly Hibernate is used. So used for these main three reasons. One is to convert Java objects and to remove the need of SQL instead of going every time and writing an SQL. So easily we can do CRUD operation using Java. So these are the three things you have to concentrate. Then coming to Hibernate. So first thing we have something called configuration. So we have configuration, then we have session factory. I'll explain what and all these are. Then we have session, and we have session, and we have transaction, and fifth one we have query. So what exactly this means is like, first thing what you'll do is you will be creating a Java program. It is like Java app that is called configuration. So this is how the flow works. So you'll be creating a Java app. Then you have something called satisfactory. So like sorry, session factory. So session factory, what you'll be doing is like each session you'll be, it is something like you go into a movie, okay, so you will be having sessions, right? So 9 a.m. to first show is like 9 a.m. to some 11 a.m. or 12 sorry 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Then second show it starts at 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. or 4:30 p.m. So then night evening show, then night show, it is something like that. So each one has a session. So for example, if I take when it comes to Java, if I take a database, okay, so it has, each one has a session. So if I'm running a test now, so once the test session is run, then it will go to the other session, okay. In the same way we'll be using session factory. Then comes the session is the nothing but Hibernate. Okay, so session is nothing but a Hibernate you'll be using. So where exactly you'll be converting the Java objects into database table. Then comes the transaction, that is JDBC. Okay, JDBC, so you'll be converting into JDBC, and finally the database. So database is nothing but the query. So once the conversion is done, it will come to the transaction, the JDBC. So JDBC will fetch everything and it will convert into the query. Okay, so you will speak like here what we'll be doing is like, think Hibernate as a translator, okay. So it will be translating you everything. So for example, think I am a Hibernate, okay, so I am translating to the person. Okay, what I'll do is, as Hibernate, what I'll do is first I'll speak about Java. Okay, once I spoke about Java, I will speak about database using SQL. So once I speak about Java, in Java only I will be writing my database, that is SQL. So, okay. Then once I've done with my SQL, what this Hibernate does is it will convert that. So it will convert that SQL query, like the query which I've written in the Java program, so using Java, so that will be converted into database and that you will be giving into the SQL. So the flow is simple. You'll be writing a Java app first, then it will be converted to Hibernate, then JDBC, then database. So this is the flow you'll be using. Okay, this is the flow we'll be following. So do you have any doubts so far in this concept? Any doubts? Any doubts? Do you have any doubts in the architecture? Because this question will be asked in the interview. So this is very, very easy concept. So it is like all modified version. It is something like a AI. So AI is like everything has been modified version for you now, right? So it is easy. So do you have any doubts? Shall I move to the coding part? Any doubts? Okay. So, so I've already created a project. So nothing here. What you'll do is it is a basic step. Go to new Java project. Then you'll give a Java project name. Okay, so you'll be giving the name, whatever name you wanted. So I've already created a name. Okay, just a name I've created. I've not written any sort of programs here. So I've created a name called Hibernate Demo. So what I'll do is once it is created, I'll just go here, click on the project config, and I'll convert it to the Marvin project. Okay, once it is converted, I'll get a something called POM file, pom.xml. Inside that pom.xml, what I'll be doing is like I'll be using Hibernate. So using dependencies, I'm using Hibernate. Then I'm using SQL connector because I need SQL connector here to connect my front end and the back end. Then I'm using JPA. JPA is nothing but this is a API will be using in Java. Okay, so these are the three things I've taken here, just the added dependencies. Next, what I'll do is I'll come here, I'll come here, I'll click new package. So anything you can take a package. I'll take com.demo. Any package you can take. I'll just take com.demo. So inside this package, what I'll do is I'll create a two classes. So what I'll do is I'll be taking an entity here. So I'll be taking a example of student itself. So we can do a CRED operation. So I've took student. Oh, sorry. So I've taken new class. I've given student. I'll give finish. So one is student. So where exactly the features of student will be writing. And I'll create one more file, one more class that is main. Okay. One more class I'll be creating that is main app or something, anything name you can take. I'll take main app. So now files have been created. Okay, my files has been created for now. Then so now this is done. Okay. So once it is done, what I'll do is I'll step into my main method that is like Java class. So inside this Java class, what I'll do is I'll be importing few things. Okay. So before importing, let me write a code. So here we'll be using an annotation called entity. So why exactly we'll be using an annotation called entity here is so before we were using a direct mapping, right? So here we'll be using a mapping class. So for example, before what we were doing is like we before we were directly giving using SQL, right? So we were using a mapping class, something like this. Mapping class is equals to, we were giving com dot demo dot student. So if it is a student, you are doing this. So this is where the uh, Java class we were giving. This is where exactly you are giving your Java code, right? So here what we'll be doing is we will be using a keyword called entity. Entity is like you have used attributes, right? Till now you have used attributes, how to use attributes, you know where to use attributes, yes or no? So behind this scene we'll be using entity, where entity will be creating a Hibernate classes. So you'll be creating a Hibernate classes. For that Hibernate classes, creation of Hibernate classes, you will be using an entity. So when you use this annotation, what happens is like you have created a class, right? So in the backend, what this Hibernate do is using this entity keyword, it will be creating a table called student table. So it will be creating a student table there, and you using that table you will be writing everything. So it will be creating your database, the class name there, and using that you will be writing all the codes there. And we have seen something called session factory, right? We had seen something called session factory here, yes or no? So this session factory is like configuration we saw, we'll be using entity, and that entity will help us to create a student table. Yes. So we have something called session factory. So this session factory is like, it is used to make the settings. So to create a sector session factory, so we what we'll be doing is we'll be using something called session factory. So we'll be using open quotes like this. So this really tells the block Hibernate where to connect and how to connect and how to work with a database. So like it will show how to connect and work with a database to Hibernate. So for that reason you will be using session factory here. Okay. So this is the main thing we'll be using. So this session factory is will tell how to connect and work with a database. Okay. It is something like a roadmap for you. So if you go to any mall or something, they've kept a direction, right? So direction map, if you step into the metro station or something, you have something called a map of the stations, like which stations comes, what comes next, and where exactly you have to go. So you can just look into that map and you can go, right? In the same way even the session factory works. So session factory, it connects how to connect and work with a database. So there you will be using this session factory. So is that clear? Session factory, is that clear? So, mainly in interviews, they'll be asking about the keywords itself. They'll be not asking anything in depth. They'll ask, what is session factory? Where do you use Hibernates? So, these kind of questions they'll be asking. Okay, so here we saw what is session factory and what is entity, right? So now what I'll do is I'll import. So for import, you as I've used in the Marvin project, you can do that way. Or else if you have any zip files or any packages, if you have downloaded, you can even use that packages as well, and you can place it in your jar files. Okay, in the library you can place it and you can use that as well. Okay, if you have not imported it. Persistence dot id. So I'll be using two things. One is entity and the other one is id. So let me start at. So I've used a keyword called entity. Okay, yeah, spelling is correct. So inside this I'll be using something called at id. So inside this id I'll give my private int id. So I need a id to be printed. I'll give private, sorry, string. So private string I'll be taking for the name. So I wanted to print my name and the email, mail and the id for the student. So once this is done, so I've given my id. So inside that id, what I've did is inside that ID I have declared two things inside private, that is ID and the name. So I wanted to keep my student ID as private. So that is the reason I'm using private int ID. Then I'm using private string name here. Okay. So is this clear? So why I'm using private? So I'll go a little bit slow itself because this is a bit confusing for you guys. So any doubts here so far? Till here, any doubts? Simple concept. Don't get confused. First, what you'll do is first you'll create a Java project, then you'll convert it into Maven. Then what you'll do is you will be importing this JPA statements, this JPA annotations. That is, one is entity and the other one is ID. So entity is used to mark class as table. So this is a class you'll be using. So it will mark it as a table, and ID is like marks it acts as a primary key. Okay, Hibernate understand this annotations, that is identity and the id. So this is a keywords for Hibernates. So for as humans, this is a keyword called entity is for creation of class, and id is like a primary key. Okay, so this entity is there, no, this is very important. So this class should be mapped to the database. So database table which have set. So database table, so here it will be mapped into database table. So if you want, I'll just you can make a note of it. Entity. So this is very important when it comes to interviews. So this class should be mapped to a database table. So it is something like student class will become student table when it comes to Hibernates. Okay. Internally for Java, it is considered as a student class, whereas for Hibernate, it is considered as student table. Okay. So for example, you are in a class. Okay. Think you are in a class. Okay. In one class, there are 40 members or 50 members. So what you'll do is you are in particular class and your teacher has something called attendance or Excel sheet, right? So in this Excel sheet, each person has their own IDs and names. Each person has their own IDs and names, right? So that ID and name will be in the form of something like, for example, think I'm Yashaswini, so my roll number is 2012, and I'll give my name. Okay, so in this way you will be writing inside the class. Okay, inside the classroom, like inside the Excel sheet, your values will be like 12 and yes. Whereas when it comes to table, whereas it comes to Hypernet, it will be saved in the form of table. So it will be formed in, say, in the form of table. It will be like 2, so 3. So you'll be giving a name like something like this, and it will be stored in the table format. Okay, then for declaration we have created a class, and we know what is primary, what is ID. It acts as a primary key. Okay, so each student must have a unique ID, right? So for that reason we are using a ID here. So primary key cannot be like, it should be unique, right? So that is the reason ID, when you give ID notation, automatically Hibernate thinks, okay, this should act as a primary key, and you have to give something unique. Okay, so it internally, what happens is, it internally calls as ID int primary key. So when you give a ID, so it will be noted as int primary key. Okay, it is something like, what they say, your Aadhaar number, employee ID. So each person has their own Aadhaar number, right? So in that way you will be giving this. So is that clear difference between entity and ID? Is it clear? Do you have any doubts? So I am going very slow because this is important concept. So do you have any doubts here? Shall I move to the next concept? So are you guys clear of entity and the ID? Yes. Can anyone say what is entity? What is the annotation, like entity annotation used for? Can anyone say why do we use entity annotations? Anyone? So will you say, or shall I pick the people randomly? This is very important for interview. If you guys are here for interview purpose, please don't mess it, make a note of it. So if you want, I'll give you 2 minutes of time so that you can just think. Yeah, sorry. So you have 2 minutes of time. So you can just go through here. Please make sure the theory is fine, then I'll move to the coding part. If you don't know theory, then if you don't understand the concept, then if I explain the coding also, you'll not understand. Just simple concept when it comes to architecture. You just have to follow this 5 step. One is configuration, session factory, session, transaction, query. That's it. Okay, so session factory is nothing but it will show what to connect, how to connect, where to connect. Okay, session is nothing but the Hibernate. So Hibernate is like, it will convert your values, the session values, into database. Okay, then for transaction using JDBC, you will be making a connection, and it will be converted into a query. So make sure you understand entity, ID. These two keywords are very important. Annotations, it is very important. So can anyone say what is entity now? Are you guys able to understand, or any confusions? Please try to ask questions now itself, like then later don't ping me individually asking like, ma'am, like I don't, like you were too fast or you were too slow. You can ask me right now, or else if you have any doubts, please make a note of it and you can ask me in the next class as well. Or else if you have any queries after the class, you can just ping me. So if you have, like, if you can't unmute and speak, you can just put a message in a chat box. So can anyone say what is entity and what is ID? Fast. We don't have time. We have so much to complete. What is entity and what is ID? Anyone? So hope you remember entity is something like it converts your class into table. Okay, simple. So the people who are in the one class think we are all belongs to some college. Okay, so each one has a sections, right? A section, B section. So like first year students first floor, second year students second floor, something like that. Okay, so you, if you are a section or B section in unique, you will be called as first year students, right? So in that first year students, what happens is you will be think you'll have you like in your particular class you'll be like 40 to 50 members. In that 40 to 50 members, what you'll do is, so that 40 to 50 members data will be stored in some Excel sheet or in some book, hard written or soft copy, anything is fine. So that thing, so hard copy is like your whole class is converted into an Excel sheet. Okay, that in your whole biodata will be stored in that Excel sheet. Your attendance, your ID, like your roll numbers and your marks, everything will be entered in that Excel sheet. So that Excel sheet is there, no, that is called your database. So the whole class is there, no, that is called Java. Okay, so you will be manually go sitting there in your classes, right? So there your manual data is being taken and your physical presence is being taken, and that is being dumped into an Excel sheet. So that becomes your soft copy. So soft copy becomes something like your SQL. So it is like automatic conversion. Okay, so it is something like automatic conversion. So you no need to convert anything. So it will be automatically converting using, once you write a entity and once you write a ID annotations, automatically that using that entity ID it will be converting. Okay, so it will be converting student class into student table, and the database which you will be giving in Java will be converting into the Java, like the database SQL query. So is that clear? So is that clear? So still do you have any doubts? This is very important. This, so only I'm stressing it out again and again. You might think it is boring, but very important when it comes to interviews. If you want to get it placed in any companies, this is very important. So ID is acts as a primary key. So is that clear? So shall I move to the next step? Yeah, thank God, at least one person reacted. Yeah, okay. So I just wanted to know that like people, we have assigned projects for you. Please, some few people blindly copy pasted your ChatGPT links. So we are not asking for your ChatGPT links, okay? So we want you to just present your skills you have. We guys need you to create some programs and execute it for your practice, okay? So I'll be checking each and individual, like each and every projects, and based on that marks will be reviewed. So please make sure, no, don't play in this. Okay, so here I'll be using int id and string name, and this is a normal code you'll be using. So sorry. So here public student. So I've created a student here. So inside student, what I'll do is I'll be giving a name, like using constructor. I'll be creating. So most of the times you'll be using constructor itself. So I'm passing my parameters. So hint and string name. So inside that, what I'll do is I'll be using this keyword, this dot id is equals to id. So I'm using this keyword, I'm declaring my id, and the name is equals to name. So once it is done, once this is done, so you will be creating public int get id. I guess you guys know what is get and setter method. So inside that get id, what I'll do is I'll be returning my id. So inside that get method, I'll be returning my id. Then I'll be using public void set id. So inside that id, what I'll do is I'll be setting my id. Okay. That id is this dot id is equals to id. Then once it is done, what you'll do is inside that you will be even getting your name also. So first we have used a get and setter method for id. In the same way, you will be using get and setter method for name also. Okay, then here I'm using this keyword, and I'm passing my parameter, that is name and the id. Simple. So public string int name, return name, so this dot name is equals to name. So I have created, first I've kept in private. So I've initialized this using id, that is the primary key. Inside that I've initialized id and the name, and inside students I've passed the parameters using this keyword I've declared. Then I'm using get method and the set method, and using get method I've called id, and using set method I'm calling the id. So I'm returning the id using get method. So get and set have created the student.java is done. So is that clear? Till now, is that clear? Student program, what we have done, is that clear? Yes, no? Is this clear? Okay. So in the next class, we'll be moving into, like, we'll be writing our main class, and using XML file. As we know, using XML file, we were making our database connection, right? There you will be giving your username, password, and we will be making a connection. We'll see that in the next class. So I guess we can wind up our session.